Join me as I dive into Dave Ramsey's advice and see if I can prove why it doesn't work for most people. When it comes to personal finance celebrities, Dave Ramsey is one of the largest names that we have, from going absolutely bankrupt, from having best-selling books, the radio show, and everything else that we have. There is a little bit of controversy with the business practices, but unfortunately for a majority of listeners, it is a lot easier to listen to what he has to say versus the practical application, which is what we're going to be talking about today in the video, why Dave Ramsey's advice doesn't work for everybody. Now, of course, when you start breaking it down systematically, there's a lot of things, and it starts with building on shame. When you start looking at the very basic, the very fundamentals, it is really a practicing of the faith that suits a lot of people with some drawbacks. It is built on you making bad decisions. It is built really on shame and the belief that debt is a shameful thing to have. And of course, it is priority number one to get out of it, to eliminate it, to completely get rid of it. Now, of course, when you start thinking of Christianity, which we're not going to get into, it really says, a lot of the different proverbs and things I know that he does follow to really show you why it is shameful to carry debt. Now, of course, another really big one is a lot of it seems unrealistic. For a majority of people, when you think of the 7 baby steps, some people can follow them, some people cannot at all, and some people, monetary wise, cannot see it at all. So they could find it realistic because when you're on beans and rice, when you don't have money for literally everything, you're giving up every single small pleasure in your life that really can make it, for some people, livable. If you can't afford to pay your monthly bills, some people do have no choice to go in and actually, borrow money, use credit cards. There's a lot of things until you get to a better situation that you have to do that makes some of the things that he talks about really unrealistic, and it can be also misleading. Now, I know Dave Ramsey hates credit cards. We've seen this before. And of course, he advises all of the listeners to never get credit cards. Now, on the flip side of that, when I think of credit cards as a financial counselor, it is a tool. It is not something that is a crutch. It is something that can be very misleading, having a credit card. And if it is managed and if it is utilized properly, it can really be super beneficial for building credit, which I know they talk about is just really being the slave to the man. But earning rewards on those cards can be profitable. Fraud protection on those cards can be profitable. And there's a lot of places that you do have to have them. Some places do not accept debit cards when you're booking hotel rooms. Some of them will only take credit cards as a form of kind of the upfront card that they have on file that they can charge. And again, I've seen this in the financial industry where they will not take debit cards because, of course, you can move all the money from the account. I know with credit cards, you could close out the card, but overall, it is a lot more difficult to do. Now, of course, modern technology is something that is not taken into account. When we think of the 7 baby steps, it seems like it is a very, very old methodology that you can apply to certain situations, but there are some different ways to really make it better. And of course, when you think about this, and he talks about the envelope method, which of course, a lot of the money actually envelope method is no longer used. We know he has the Every Dollar app and a couple other things. And of course, when it comes to grocery bills, when it comes to the expense of things, a lot of people don't want to carry around hundreds of dollars of cash because as of we sit today, most of it is cashless society. And even a lot of places that we went recently will not take cash at all, meaning you're going to have a debit card to go ahead and pay for things, or you're going to have a credit card if you're going to use that route. And of course, making sure, and I do, again, agree with a lot of things that I have, paying off the credit card in full every single month, not paying interest on that card. Now, I do know that with a credit card, you do have a tendency to spend more. But of course, the justification for that is the rewards, which I do use myself, and I do reap the rewards of a credit card program. Now, when it comes to spending money needlessly, this again is something when you start thinking of investing, and this is a part that I, again, really don't agree with. When you think of Dave Ramsey, he is a very huge fan of mutual funds. According to him, low risk, high reward, and of course, it doesn't paint the entire picture. Now, he has a lot of financial advisors, which of course does give him a benefit because they charge fees. With the fees that they are charging, it is going to be a very, very big part of a portfolio when you start thinking about 20, 30, 40 years down the road. Mutual funds can be very expensive. And of course, if you do your research, looking at EFTs, ETFs, which I go ahead and invest in, they have a very, very low ratio, a low expense ratio. And when you start looking at the performance, most of the ones like the VOO, the S&P 500, when you start looking at 30 or 40 years, they are outperforming almost all of the mutual funds that we do have because they don't have the cost associated with it. But of course, there is some benefit for him when it comes to actually using and selling mutual funds. Now, it provides no application for budgetary education. This is another part where I don't feel like we're really on the same page. So he really talks about not getting or giving out information that is not tailored to everyone. It is more of just kind of blanket size, one size fits all solutions when it comes to the baby steps, which again, when it comes to individual financial situations, I love what he does on the talk show because you can tailor your solutions, you can tailor the conversation in the method that fits the person that is calling. And of course, he is also known and well known for the elimination of debt. When it comes to debt, not all debt is bad. And honestly, when you start thinking of everything but a mortgage, there's a lot of debt that is going to be required. That is going to be considered good debt. And I know he says no debt is good debt. But when you think of, let's say, borrowing money to further your education, really, really important for a lot of people that don't have parents that can fund an education, that can't fund an education themselves while they're working full time, they have no option. When you start looking again, kind of the blanket of never holding debt, when you look at the ability to possibly increase your net worth, significantly enhance your life, get a better job, start a career, for a lot of people, it is going to be about borrowing money. It is about getting those student loans. And of course, this does make a big difference. I know we talked about the emergency fund, which is baby step one, saving that $1,000. Now, of course, this is not going to cover an emergency in its wholehearted. When you think of a fully funded emergency fund, we're talking 3 to 6 months of living expenses saving away. And this is where he focuses on that first $1,000 and then right into debt. Now, of course, if something should happen during that time, you're going to be right back to borrowing in debt because that $1,000 emergency fund for a majority of people is going to be very, very short-lived. I mean, for some people, even thinking of a month, you're going to be well over that $1,000 limit within the first 30 days that there is a job loss or something that is very significant. So of course, I know step number 3 is a lot more practical where you're building up that baby step, but of course it goes into step 2, which is the big part of the debt. Now, when you think of the elimination of debt, and again, this is baby step number 2, according to Dave Ramsey, it is about paying off and eliminating debt. However, it never addresses the root cause of debt and what the actual spending problem is. And that's where I see the biggest hurdle within here. It doesn't really understand the psychological impact of spending money and healing what you don't reveal, really understanding from a big picture, from a spending progression. A lot of people that I see want to consolidate, want to pay off credit card debt. We do consolidation loans, we do home equity loans, we consolidate everything right into one nice payment that is definitely affordable. However, we don't address the root cause, which this is the spending problem, the overutilization of credit cards. So most people within the next 3 to 5 years get right back into that credit card debt and right back into the cycling of borrowing again, because again, it doesn't really make sense when you are paying down the credit card debt and using the credit card debt, which a lot of people do because they have to financially to go ahead and fix that out. Now, he talks about people working harder instead of smarter. This again is a very, very old school mentality. When I was in the service, just thinking about that's the way we do it because that's the way we've always done it. It really takes the ambition out of getting a better job, getting a higher paying job, doing student loans to get probably an education, getting a degree in something that you could earn a lot more money. We don't want them to be, having the mindset that you're going to be working and you're going to be working in the exact same place forever, because that is not the truth if you really want to think about it. And of course, he really preaches and talks about our debt snowball. Debt snowball is a good method, paying that smallest balance first. However, it doesn't take into account what the rate is within there. And of course, looking at the debt avalanche that we've covered before, it is paying off the highest rate to the lower rate, meaning you're going to get more bang for your buck. Again, kind of counterintuitive to what he actually teaches. And when it comes to delaying savings for retirement, this is another one that we're not on the same page. And unfortunately, we don't see kind of eye to eye. So for a lot of people, in thinking about this, he goes on the core belief that you shouldn't start saving money until all the debt is gone. However, if there's a place for a lot of people, and of course, a lot of people are in this exact same boat, that you look 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, debt at that point has never been eliminated. And guess what? 20 years down the road, retirement savings has never begun either. We're not seeing any compounding. We're not seeing no growth. And you've also missed out on 20 years of employer matching in 401k because, of course, if you're putting too much in retirement and not paying off the debt, that can be detrimental. But if you're not putting anything into retirement, I would really advise you to start with at very minimum the company match, then getting into building a little bit of an emergency fund. Then it goes into the elimination of debt for a majority of people. And of course, he talks about the beans and rice. He talks about liquidating everything like it's on fire. Selling assets to pay off debt could be very detrimental when it comes to the big picture. I know it's really good to pay off a house, to pay off a car, to pay off some big ticket items, but the ability to cash out your CDs, your savings accounts, your investments accounts, there can not only be tax implications for it, but you can also lose a lot of gains. Even when you think about investing and when you think about the ability to either pay off your house or invest the money, depending what situation you are, again, we're kind of offering a blanket solution through Dave Ramsey, which doesn't really cater it to everybody's individual concerns and how they manage their money and thinking of what they really need to do. All right, guys, so that is going to do it. As much as I love Dave Ramsey, I support a majority of his teachings. Some of them I feel are kind of outdated, need to revise those 7 baby steps, really sitting them down, revisiting them, bringing them up to really 2024 standards on how people are actually living. Again, on paper, listening to it, reading it, it can make a lot of sense, but putting it into action can be incredibly difficult. So that's going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And as always, thank you guys for watching.